Welcome to episode 6 of Obscure Star Wars EU, the series where I shine a light into the more dark and obscure and forgotten areas of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. So far, we have covered the Heine Minis with Quality Autism. We have covered the Hive of the Infidel from Star Wars Gamer magazine. We have covered the Star Wars Miniverse card lore. We have covered the Ewoks picture books, well, 4 of the mini ones, not some of the others that we'll explore later on. And we have explored North Coast Role-Playing Magazine number 8 with the article Imperial Submarine Assault Stormtroopers. Today we're going to look at something very special, the Star Wars Masterpiece Collection, which is a set of 3 hardcover source books that came with action figures. This will be our first reference book in the Obscure EU series, and I hope you guys enjoy shedding a light on some obscure expanded universe material. Okay, so here we have the Star Wars Masterpiece Collection. These are hardcover source books that were released in 1998 for the first one, 1999 for the second one, and 2000 for the final one. Now the Masterpiece Collection were released by Chronicle Books, which released other stuff like the Journal of Master Nostaral and the Book of Sith and stuff like that. Like, just kind of fancier, random source material. Chronicle Books released a lot of kind of cool stuff over the years. So we'll take a look at all of these and take a look inside the books themselves later on. So this is Anakin Skywalker, the story of Darth Vader. You'll notice all of these have this like tilt. So if you're looking at it online on the picture you're going to order it off of eBay, you're wondering why there's a giant white triangle on one part of the cover. Well, there's not. It's slanted and at a sharp diagonal angle. So Anakin Skywalker, the story of Darth Vader, was written by Stephen J. Sansweet, who wrote a lot of things, with Daniel Wallace and Josh Ling. So these guys have written a lot of things for the Expanded Universe. On the back, you have an ISBN, and the cover art is pretty nice. It's just a planet, some stars, all these lines. Here's the spine. And you have the Chronicle Books logo there. And the cover features Darth Vader. I'll remove the dust jacket here as well. Anakin Skywalker, the story of Darth Vader, and it says it on the spine as well. This is all silver. It's a nice quality. It has the Star Wars logo up here as well. It's really well made. I'm very impressed with it overall. The dust jackets are pretty nice. The inside is pretty nice. The pages are high quality. And I'll explain why in a second. I wasn't expecting them to be as high quality as they ended up being. Once I get this dust jacket back on. And the dust jacket has a little blurb about Anakin Skywalker and the importance of Darth Vader to pop culture. And in the back, there's a little blurb on the back of the dust jacket that says about the author, Stephen J. Sansweet. And then there's a Made in China stamp on there as well. So moving on from the silver volume from 1998, we get this one, C-3PO, Tales of the Golden Droid. And this one's by Daniel Wallace and Josh Ling, so Sansweet wasn't involved in this one. On the back, once again, you've got a planet with a moon and the stars. I love how there's all these diagonal lines across it. Chronicle Books. The logo's different. Well, the logo remains the same, but it's a silver font, silverish blue font for Anakin Skywalker on the first one, then a gold for 3PO and a bronze for Aurra Sing. But that's spoilers for later. I will remove the dust jacket from this one as well. Show you guys the cover here. C-3PO, Tales of the Golden Droid. Star Wars, C-3PO, Tales of the Golden Droid. Chronicle Books. And again, it's slanted at an angle like all of these are. Now I'll throw that dust jacket back on. And this dust jacket has a blurb about the authors Daniel Wallace and Josh Ling in the back. And in the front, it talks about the comedic nature of C-3PO and how from the get-go, he's been a fun comedic character that's been important to the saga of Star Wars. Finally, we have our last volume, Aurra Sing, Dawn of the Bounty Hunters. And you'll see that in addition to Aurra Sing taking a prominent stance on this cover, which I think this is the best cover of all of them, you've also got the other bounty hunters. You've got Dengar, IG-88, Bossk, 4-LOM, Zuckuss, and Boba Fett. Because this is also covering the story of the other bounty hunters as well. And this is by Ryder Windham and Josh Ling. So Josh Ling stuck around for all 3 volumes. Daniel Wallace was on the first 2, and Sansweet was on the first one, and Ryder Windham, great author, was a part of the final volume here. In the back, you have a blurb about both of these authors. In the front, it talks about bounty hunters and has that quote from Admiral Piet, where he says, "We don't need that scum," right? It's very nice. These are very well put together. Then this one's a bronze color, rather than the gold of the 3PO volume. Star Wars logo, text on the spine, and there you have it. The planet on the back of this one looks pretty cool too. I think the Aurra Sing volume is just aesthetically my favorite. And I think the cover is designed in the best way. And honestly, it's probably the best source book of all of them. And I'm going to talk about why these are kind of expanded universe important, in my opinion, in a little while. So, there you have it, the Masterpiece Collection, released in 1998, 1999, and 2000. So all part of the Episode 1 mania of all that tie-in material. And, yeah, it's super cool. I think these are really great. They're very high quality, and I definitely recommend picking them up for folks. But we're going to take a look inside of them now. We'll go from the Aurra Sing volume backwards. So, although this is the third one, we'll take a look at this one first. Then we'll take a look at the middle one. Then we'll take a look at the Anakin Skywalker volume, which was the first one last. And take a look inside the pages. And I'll talk about what are these source books about. Now, before we do that, I'll mention why I didn't think they were going to be as good quality as they were. So the Star Wars Masterpiece Collection was essentially an action figure. And I'll put those up on screen. They were 12-inch figures. The Aurra Sing one is basically a Barbie doll. From Amazon reviews I've read, the action figures were really not that well made. They were quite flimsy. Specifically, the Aurra Sing one was not liked for being way too malleable and not being like high quality sculpting. I found an Amazon review from like 2005 or 2006, and the people were complaining about it. The action figures, people were not happy with how they were made. But there was an action figure that went with each of them, and although I only have the books, there was a huge box set, and it had a little cutout section that the book would sit in, and the action figure, or the doll, would sit in. And these had a cover price of $75 when it came out. $75. That just blows my mind. I can't imagine spending $75 on a action figure that was thought of as being really cheap, and just 3, like, barely over 100-page source books. It's just wild. You'd be paying, like, $245, something like that, if my math is correct. Which it probably isn't. You'd be paying $225 dollars to get all 3, which just is mind-blowing to me. Luckily, they're not that expensive anymore. I did get good deals on all of these. I got them for $8, $8, and $8. So got them for $24 overall instead of spending $275, which is, pretty good. And these can be found for about that price. Maybe a little more. You'd be looking at around $20 for each of these now, which is fair, and I would definitely recommend picking these up because I do think they are worth it. But because they were released kind of with an action figure, I thought that the book would be kind of hastily put together, if that makes sense. Like just thrown together to be there with the action figure, with the doll. And they're actually really good. It feels like the doll is more complimenting the book than the book complimenting the doll. And I thought it was going to be like the book was just thrown together last minute to be thrown in with the doll for the Masterpiece Collection here. But it really feels the other way around. A cheap action figure was tacked on, and that's what it seems like to me, at least, anyways. But now let's take a look inside of Aurra Sing, Dawn of the Bounty Hunters, and see what this is all about. Alright, so here we have the first book for the Masterpiece Collection, Aurra Sing, Dawn of the Bounty Hunters. So let's take a look inside of this volume. And I will walk you through the different sections here. So we have a table of contents right here, and also we have a little blurb about the Masterpiece Collection here that you can pause and read if you would like. It's dedicated to Sansweet, which is interesting since he wasn't involved with this one. But here's the table of contents, and it says Hunters in the Making, the Saga of the Bounty Hunters, Substantial Rewards, Bounty Hunters Collectibles, and then there's a bibliography. So Hunters in the Making covers the out-of-universe development of bounty hunters. It focuses on Aurra Sing from episode 1, as that was what was out at the time, and then it also focuses on the original bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back as well, and some EU bounty hunters, which is why this is EU relevant. And again, I'll make this point. I've made this point before. How can anyone say the EU wasn't canon when you will find in this book literal novels, literal comics, information from the comics and the novels treated alongside the movies as canonical? Literally, it talks about Boba Fett surviving the Sarlacc. It doesn't talk about that as, oh, the books continued this on. The books, they continued the story of Boba Fett. They did their own thing afterwards, separate from them. No, it treats that as fact. It treats it as fact. And this isn't marketed as an EU source book. It is now because of the EU references and because it was published between 1976 and 2014. But these had characters from the movies, action figures from the movies, and they weren't marketed as being expanded universe material. But they included so much EU in these that it just doubles down on the fact that how can anyone say the EU was not canon? This just further proves it to me. It was treated as expanded universe canon, and I think that can never be denied. So after the table of contents here, we enter into Hunters in the Making. And it talks about how George Lucas wanted a bounty hunter in episode 1. And then we get some awesome sketches behind the scenes of Aurra Sing. And it talks about how George originally wanted her to have tentacles. And it's got great images from behind the scenes stuff in here and great text. I love the formatting. There's a lot of material to go through in this. And it talks about how George wanted her to be tentacled at first. He drew like a squid-like being crossed with a human. But eventually he settled on a more humanoid look. And he wanted to get away from like the armored bounty hunters from the past, right? And so you can see these wonderful people working on the costume of Aurra Sing. And you have some interview pieces in here from the actress who played Aurra Sing. You have them applying the makeup to Aurra here, talking about her hair. The makeup artist Karen Bradley dyed the tresses for her hair in her own kitchen sink. So it's stuff like that's so cool to learn for the behind-the-scenes stuff of the movies. All these great images in here, and lots of great stuff from behind the scenes. The actress talked about going to see the movie with her friends and knew where she was going to be. So during the pod race scene, she was like, look, guys, I'm about to appear. And it was really cool because the actress was so excited that she was going to be a bounty hunter because she knew that Boba Fett had a small role and he was a huge deal, talked about for forever afterwards. So on this page, there's some interviews with her, some words that she's used and said, where she just talks about being so excited to be a part of Star Wars and a part of the Bounty Hunters. And here is where we get some brilliant expanded universe stuff. First of all, this amazing EU art piece and sketch, and then the cover of her appearance on the Bounty Hunters. And it talks about how on this page Tim Truman, who wrote the Aurra Sing comic book. And it talks about how when he went to see the movie, and this is an Insider magazine interview that they stuck in here, where they took his quote from, and he said that there was an audible like gasp in his theaters when Aurra Sing was on screen. Everyone was like, "Who was that?" And who or what was that? And everyone was like super excited. And Tim Truman said that his start into comic books was because he was an artist before he was a writer, and so his art portfolio was all just fan art of bounty hunters, and that's how he got his start. So when his agent was like, "There's this new female bounty hunter in Star Wars Episode 1," he was like, "Give her to me. I want to write her." Then we have more behind the scenes photos, behind the scenes stuff, sketches, stuff like that. And Tim Truman then in interviews in here talks about developing her character. And he's one really cool thing that he mentioned is, "However, I know that behind that cocky smirk of hers is some very tragic stuff." And we would see that developed in the expanded universe. Then there's a weird section in all of these where it shows the design and making of the toy that's included in the Masterpiece Collection. And I just don't care about that at all, personally. I don't care about the crafting of the figure itself. And then it jumps right into Greedo and his development in Episode 4. And from there we jump right into sketches at the top and the bottom, and how they did the costumes for the bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back, with Dengar, IG-88, Boba Fett, Bossk, 4-LOM, and Zuckuss. And we get some early sketch designs. We see them working on the props. All this great stuff here that showed how Macquarie was sketching, the amazing people at ILM who did some incredible stuff to design these costumes. We get some stuff from the original comic book strip up here. We get, literally it says, "The incident in Ord Mantell was later realized in the comic strip by Archie Goodwin and artist Al Williamson." See, the EU again being treated as canon. It's so great. And so this all deals with the development of bounty hunters. It also mentions how Dengar was once called Zuckuss by Score in Goodwin and Williamson's comic book run, which was a little wrinkle in continuity that was later explained by Abel G. Pena. But see, it's treated as a part of things. We get sketches of their ships and all of this great, beautiful behind-the-scenes stuff in this first section, which is Hunters in the Making, is what that says down there. And just taking a look at all of this stuff is so super cool. And we delve into Boba Fett, which is awesome. And the Slave One, Boba Fett's design, with all these sketches. It mentions the holiday special and how it was rarely seen by anyone, but how the animated segment was regarded as being really good with the introduction of Boba Fett here. And we got an awesome little still from the holiday special. I was super excited to see that as a big holiday special fan. This page is really cool. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Craig Miller at LegendsCon, who was a really cool guy. He was the head from Lucasfilm for fan outreach, and he wrote Star Wars Memories, which was his memoirs of working on set of Star Wars. He recorded and recalled such things as smoking a blunt with Harrison Ford, going to Mark Hamill's house to grill out burgers, Carrie Fisher's love of tacos. Just an awesome librarian who recounted and archived some stuff for us that's super important. And here on this page, this section here that's in bold is taken right from Craig Miller's Bantha Tracks, which was his fan outreach news zine. It was like a unofficial thing at first, but eventually it got licensed. So the Bantha Tracks were like folded pieces of papers that were sent out to answer questions about Star Wars. And it was Bantha Tracks that first labeled all of Boba Fett's weapons. And it's so cool that this book that's a reference guide for the making of the bounty hunters would reference how important the EU relevant information from Bantha Tracks would be, that it answered all of this. And I just think that's so cool. Although some of this lore would eventually kind of be retconned, like shock troopers came from the far side of the galaxy and there aren't many of them left. All of that information was early speculation from Mr. Miller, and it was all eventually retconned. But it does fit quite well, and it's so cool that we got labeled what all of this stuff is. And I think it's so cool that they just copy pasted a Bantha Tracks into this reference book. We get more amazing images from the films, behind the scenes stuff for the making of it, stills, literal dialogue up here. And then we get stuff about the Dark Horse comics over here. Dark Empire, Boba Fett, Twin Engines of Destruction, Del Rey doing stuff with him. It's amazing. Here we get an amazing art piece and lots of Cam Kennedy's absolutely incredible Boba Fett run, which was so cool to see. And next we get to the Saga of the Bounty Hunters, which has a full comic page from the Aurra Sing comic book. Or no. This is from Star Wars number 7 from 1999. I can't remember which arc this was. Must have been Emissaries to Malastare. It wasn't Hunt for Aurra Sing yet. But it was by Tim Truman, who wanted to write her character. And so it's super cool to see that in here. And so it's the Saga of the Bounty Hunters. And this is where we get some new lore in here. But it says, for more than 25,000 years, the Jedi Knights were the peacekeepers of the Great Republic. The core worlds also relied upon various authorized security forces to maintain justice, but jurisdiction was often limited to the respective planetary system. Unfortunately, some of these security forces were rife with corruption and bungling bureaucrats, which only encouraged criminals to act with impunity. Such malefactors were also emboldened by the opportunities offered by space travel, which allowed for an almost infinite range for their illicit work, and as many places to hide. When planetary security forces were unable or unwilling to pursue these gangsters and pirates, there were usually only one other solution: bounty hunters. To some, the bounty hunters were freelance law enforcement officers. To others, they were simply the most cunning of thugs. Either way, they were professional stalkers who earned their credits by doing whatever was required to apprehend dangerous beings. As their work demanded great mental and physical discipline, many proud hunters took umbrage at the suggestion that they were mercenaries and assassins. Shooting a target was easy, but bringing a criminal to justice was hard. True bounty hunters only went after those who had committed a punishable offense that had merited an official warrant. Furthermore, most of these wanted fugitives, regarded by hunters as acquisitions and hard merchandise, were expected to be delivered alive, or the bounty would be forfeited. However, for the right price, most hunters agreed that it often paid to be flexible. In the Old Republic, there were two general categories of bounty hunters: independent bounty hunters and guild bounty hunters. The former tended to be loners who went after any bounty they wanted, but few of them lived very long, and most eventually realized they were spending more credits on their own ammunition, transportation, and medical expenses than they were collecting on bounties. Hunters who wanted a sense of organization were often drawn to the Bounty Hunters Guild, which monitored its members' activities and encouraged them to keep in touch. Guild hunters were expected to uphold the Bounty Hunter's Creed, which stipulated that no hunter could kill another hunter or interfere with another's hunt. Surprisingly, independent hunters tended to be the most steadfast supporters of this creed. And then this goes into a biography of Aurra Sing's life. So we do get some new information in this from Ryder Wyndham, but we also get amazing connections. Like, some of this information is taken straight from the Bounty Hunter Wars. Over here we have the Dark Woman, Anya Kuro, whose picture I'll put up. She trained Aurra to be a Jedi. That information is straight from the Dark Horse comic books. And we get more stuff here where it just is literally recounting the Republic comic book series up to 2000. So stuff like Emissaries to Malastare, Hunt for Aurra Sing, Outlander, all this stuff that was about Aurra Sing is all put here. Plus the Aurra Sing comic book issue, and I believe Aurra's song it is on here as well. So this just summarizes all the comic books by Ryder Windham. Does an amazing job putting it all as a prose story. We even get a little picture of her collection of lightsabers, and then we go into Dengar, and we get information from the short stories. We go into IG-88, and we get some Kevin J. Anderson references. We get Bosk, and mention of Kratos on that last page. We get mention of the Talan Datil, because Boba Fett was in the Hutt Gambit. So we get information from the Hutt Gambit. All of these biographies in this book are summaries of the movies with some new information, like where Ryder Windham, I assume, like read between the lines. So he established some new information in here. So there's some stuff that wasn't from other sources that he's like inferred. So he'll like write what they were doing in between stuff. So I think it's super cool. Plus, the other half of this, other than summarizing the movies, is summarizing the books, comics, and short stories in which these characters appeared in chronological order, which is absolutely great. We get Boba's encounter with Darth Vader, which was an interesting comic. And we get my friend Magneto Alex's favorite book series.
Skip.
Yeah, he's the one who threw the book across the room. He hates the Bounty Hunter Wars, but here we get summary of the Bounty Hunter Wars with the amazing full cover art stretched across here with Prince Zizur here. We get some Shadows of the Empire references as well. There's the one in question, hard merchandise. Absolutely beautiful art, and it looks great printed here. Then we get some expanded universe Bounty Hunter summaries, stuff like Score from the Bounty Hunter on Ord Mantell, which is up at the top here, and we get his story summarized here, which is absolutely incredible that we have a completely EU character summarized in Dawn of the Bounty Hunter sourcebook. And so, yeah, it just continues to summarize. It goes deep into Shadows of the Empire. This beautiful art piece here is absolutely stunning. I really love it. And they take stuff from all over the expanded universe that makes this guide really feel worth your money. And we go into Shadows of the Empire as well, and get some story content about Shadows. Then we go into Return of the Jedi. Then we have this West End Games Ralph McQuarrie art piece, and we talk about how Boba Fett survived right here. I love how Ryder Windham puts it. Jabba the Hutt was dead, and Boba Fett survived. Oh, Ryder Windham's such a good writer. Even when he's summarizing other people's work, he writes it so well. And then the third section is one that I don't care about as much, but some people might. It's merchandise. So it talks about not just action figures, but all the merchandising that's tied in with bounty hunters. So it's pretty cool, but I mean, not... well, here's an EU action figure. That's really cool. I actually have that one across the room. But, you know, it's alright. Some merchandising stuff here. You know, shirts, cards, lunch boxes, toothbrushes, watches, cards, figures, figurines. We even saw the Boba Fett underoos. And then at the back, we have the bibliography of all the EU stuff and sources that were mentioned. So that's Aurra Sing, Dawn of the Bounty Hunters by Ryder Windham and Josh Ling from 2000, the third and final book in the Masterpiece Collection. Now let's take a look at the second one that was released, the middle one, C-3PO, Tales of the Golden Droid, if I can grab that one up here. Let's take a peek into this one. Alright, to make things a little easier, I've removed the dust jacket. Let's take a look at C-3PO, Tales of the Golden Droid by Daniel Wallace and Josh Lynn. The table of contents. We've got the birth of the Golden Droid, which again will be a sort of behind-the-scenes summary of how C-3PO came to being, and then the Saga of C-3PO, which summarizes the in-universe story of C-3PO. The birth of the Golden Droid, we've got sketches So many sketches. This one's one of my favorite sketches. I'd actually never seen this one before, but man, 3PO looks different there. So we get some of the sketch work that was done by Macquarie and others. We get some stuff from the original Star Wars script. And yeah, we get a lot of this cool stuff here with the early art design and how they built the costume, how filming was so difficult for Anthony Daniels. Man, can you imagine being in that suit all day? Man, it would have been crazy. How the suit was made, and I like how this one like varies back and forth between white text on a black page to white text on a black page. It's aesthetically pleasing to go through. It keeps it interesting. Here, Mark Hamill is giving Anthony Daniels a drink. Here he's being carried on a board, which was quite crazy. I'd actually never seen that photo before either. So there's a lot of great information about the behind-the-scenes creation of C-3PO, the costume, the filming with C-3PO, and then we get to the saga of C-3PO, which starts with C-3PO's early life as shown in The Phantom Menace. And then it transitions, interestingly, into the Droids cartoon, which although the Droids cartoon, while there's no pictures depicting it, it's really cool because it goes from episode 1, where it says 3PO and R2-D2 spent long hours together helping Master Anakin prepare his pod racer for the upcoming championships. Despite their obvious differences, they quickly developed a comfortable working relationship. But when Master Anakin unexpectedly won the race, winning his freedom in the process, he departed Tatooine in the company of R2, Padme, and 2 Jedi Knights. 3PO was left behind in the squalid Mos Espa slave quarters with Anakin's mother, Shmi. Then it says, over the years, 3PO ventured out into the galaxy and drifted through a variety of jobs. It transitions very well from Episode 1, the Droids, the cartoon series, because Episode 2 and Episode 3 obviously hadn't come out yet, so they didn't know where it was going. But so I think Daniel Wallace does a good job transitioning that, because it just goes, over the years, 3PO ventured out into the galaxy and drifted through a variety of jobs, including programming converters and binary load lifters. He once spent a month running a shovel loader, and on another occasion was a personal caregiver for a Hutt child, which I don't remember that anywhere. I think that's new lore, which I absolutely love that. Eventually, he and R2 crossed paths again, and the two seemingly mismatched droids became an inseparable pair. At one point, more than 2 standard decades after 3PO's creation, the two droids were won by a smuggler in a gambling match. The new master had only owned them for a few days when his ship was intercepted by police vehicles above Ingo. To save his skin, the smuggler dumped his contraband cargo, including the droids, and fled. A pair of young humans, Jor Dusat and Thal Jobin, those guys, with the most amazing haircuts, salvaged R2 and 3PO. And so then it just goes into summarizing the Droids cartoon for all these pages. We got Mungo Baobab here, which is so amazing. So it's great to have the Droids cartoon in here. And then we get some other expanded universe material from the comic books, from the Droid comic books. Both the Dark Horse and the Marvel ones are summarized in there. And then we get straight into Episode 4. And it summarizes Episode 4. And there's dialogue. 3PO's dialogue is always put in bold, as it should be. And this just reads like you're reading a novel, which is really a credit to Daniel Wallace and Josh Lynn's writing abilities. They really did a bang-up job writing this, to where it's perfectly readable, almost like you're reading a novelization of the films. The word choice is really well chosen, and the images keep reminding you of the films and do a great job. So I'll skip through the film a little bit, but it goes way slower in its summary than the Bounty Hunters one. But we do get some really interesting stuff around here. We go all the way through Empire. And here we get Shadows of the Empire stuff. Prince Zizur, Dash Rendar, both get name dropped in here, which is so super cool to have some summary of, Shadows of the Empire. And then we go right through to Return of the Jedi. And it goes through to where the Ewoks regard him as a god. Amazing scene, of course. And it's got his dialogue in here like, I never knew I had it in me, and wonderful, we are now part of the tribe. That's a horrible 3PO accent, what am I doing? But, it's super cool. And then, after that, it goes, the Rebel Alliance morphed into the New Republic, and C-3PO's duties became more political. And it mentions the unknown regions. It mentions truce at Bakura with the Cyruk threat, or the Cyruk, however you pronounce it. It mentions courtship of Princess Leia with Han Solo on Dathomir. It mentions Grand Admiral Thrawn. It mentions Jason, Jaina, and Anakin. So Dark Empire and Thrawn trilogy references. It mentions how 3PO has to raise them, and it's a very busy time. We even get their adventures with Lando Calrissian, as shown in the Black Fleet trilogy. We get the Corellian trilogy mentioned as well. Young Jedi Knights reference, a literal name drop for MTD and Lobaka, which was absolutely great. And I'm going to read this because New Jedi Order hadn't fully finished yet. So what they write on this page with this great picture of 3PO is really great. I love it. So it says, but 3PO had a knack for seeing shadows on the sunniest days, and in this case he might be right. Ominous storm clouds seemed to be gathering on the horizon, portents of a cyclone that could sweep across the New Republic and leave ruins in its wake. If disaster does strike, it will run up against a frail, golden protocol droid, never built for combat, standing up bravely for his friends in spite of the raging winds. I love that! That is so perfect! They didn't know, obviously at the time, since New Jedi Order hadn't finished, what the story was going to be. I think only Vector Prime, Dark Tide, I think maybe 3 to 5 books had released for New Jedi Order. So this is perfect. I absolutely adore this. That's so well written. I love that. Standing up for his friends. And then we, once again, morph into the C-3PO merchandising, which is really great. There is way more C-3POs in there, all this great stuff. The droids action figures, all this great stuff. And finally, into the bibliography, which mentions all of the fictional works they pulled from. They even mentioned Splinter of the Mind's Eye in there. Absolutely great. Love this one. So now we will move on to Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker's story. But before we move on, there was even a reference to a new insect that wasn't put anywhere else in the expanded universe. There's some mites that C-3PO references in some of the story content here, which I think is new. Because it also puts new dialogue in at parts and new scenes, which is kind of interesting. There's new things described in between the events. It's like a novelization, right? There's some new insights. And he mentions a specific kind of mite. I don't remember the name right now. I'll put the name on the screen afterwards. But there's a specific mite, and so I looked it up, and it's nowhere else in the expanded universe. So this has original expanded universe lore in here. Now we know that there's an alien type of mite out there that's dangerous. So really, really cool stuff here. In addition to being a resource guide that covers the entire expanded universe, all of the movies, the behind-the-scenes real-world making of the characters, it also has some new lore in here. Same with the Bounty Hunters Aura Singh one. There's some new stuff in there about Aura and what she was doing. Here there's some new stuff about 3PO. Apparently he raised Rhoda the Huttlet, or not Rhoda specifically, but a Hutt child. I don't remember that from anywhere else in the EU, but I could be wrong. And we get a brand new species of mite, just what everyone wanted, right? So I think there's some really cool stuff in here. Alright, and finally the first one, Anakin Skywalker, The Story of Darth Vader. So we'll take a look inside this one now. And this one is the shortest by far. The others are over 100 pages, both of them. This one is only 96 pages, so it's a little shorter. There's an acknowledgement that's written by Steve Sansweet himself, and the table of contents are The Emergence of Darth Vader, The Saga of Darth Vader, and 20 Years of Darth Vader Collectibles. This is the least interesting behind the scenes one, in my opinion. We don't see his costume being constructed, but we do get all this amazing art of concept art of what Vader was going to be like. It's all stuff you guys have probably seen before, that I've seen before, you know. But it's still cool that they put this down, you know, in here. And it talks about how McQuarrie was tasked with helping to design this. The legend, Ralph McQuarrie. We've got some great art here. And yeah, it's really cool, all this great concept art. But we don't get the same, like, behind-the-scenes images as last time. But here we have the saga of Darth Vader. And since this is 1998 and the prequels hadn't come out, I really love how they write this. And this makes me think that this book, this summary, is actually an in-universe document. It implies that a historical council is writing it, which might sound familiar for those of you who are going through Supernatural Encounters. Could Vorin Naal or Arhul Hextrafon have written this in-universe portion? I don't know. It certainly seems that way based on this first page. And they deal expertly, Stephen J. Sansweet does, with writing this. So it says, Anakin Skywalker was many things in his tormented and antithetical life. Hero and tyrant, father and murderer. Like a near-mythic figure out of an ancient Jedi holocron, Anakin lived on an epic scale few beings can fully comprehend. His actions had more influence for both good and ill than just about any other individual in galactic history. Under the name of Darth Vader, he was responsible for some of the most brutal atrocities in the annals of the galaxy. Yet it was his final act of heroism that cut the malignant heart out of the immoral empire. The many survivors of Vader's cruelty are reluctant to forgive him for his crimes. The legendary Jedi appears to have found peace beyond death in the radiant energy of the Force. Historians are just beginning to uncover details of Anakin's early life. See, that sounds like something out of the Historical Council. This sounds in-universe. If historians are just beginning to uncover details of Anakin's early life, this is written in-universe, right? After Return of the Jedi. So it says, historians are just beginning to uncover details of Anakin's early life, since numerous archives were destroyed during the Galactic Civil War. See? It mentions Compnor. Like, come on, this fits so perfectly. Despite not knowing what the prequels held, like, this description of Anakin is pitch perfect. Good job, Stephen J. Sansweet. You did an incredible job with this. I think it is so impressive. So it says, furthermore, when Anakin assumed the mantle of Darth Vader, he attempted to stamp out all vestiges of his former existence. One fact not in dispute is that young Anakin Skywalker was trained as a Jedi by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anakin, tempted by the dark side of the Force, coldly turned his back on those he loved. A chastened Kenobi desperately tried to bring his people back from his self-destructive course he had chosen, but Anakin could not be swayed. They had a confrontation that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, and from which Anakin emerged a broken man. That fits so well with Revenge of the Sith from 7 years later. Horribly disfigured on the outside, Anakin's internal injuries were so severe that he was no longer able to survive without extensive biomachinery to keep his damaged heart pumping and his ruined lungs inflated. He was forced to encase himself in a full-body armored suit, a walking coffin of blinking pulmonary regulators and hissing oxygen intakes. Never again would Anakin be able to live life as normal men did. He was now a nightmare in black, glaring out of the world through the dark lenses of his grotesque, demonic countenance. This is really well written as well. And it goes on to mention how Anakin hid the children, which still fits. Mentions the Rebel Alliance starting up. Then it mentions some stuff here about Grand Moff Tarkin and the development of the Death Star that is straight out of the Death Star Technical Journal. It even mentions in the bibliography the Death Star Technical Journal, and there's information that's straight from that. So Weston Games references. Brilliant. I love the EU. And I'm getting so excited and hyped about this, even talking about it now. Talks about Lord Tion and Raltier. It talks about Prince Zizur and his problems with the Empire and with Vader, which will be expanded upon in a later Shadows of the Empire section here. And so this is just really well done, and it goes into A New Hope here, and this all will be summarizing A New Hope. And what's interesting is the C-3PO and the Aura Singh volume had images from the special editions. So you can see like the CGI that George Lucas had put into the scenes. These are original images. So it looks a little older, which I think is cool. Because I guess they didn't have access to the special editions at that point. I think the special edition's released in 98 or 99, maybe 97. But, yeah. Then we get this page, which is absolutely brilliant. We get a summary of the comic Vader's Quest by Darko Macon, the Cuban writer, who did a great job with Vader's Quest. And we get this beautiful printing of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. For those of you who don't know, I just did a video about Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and there will be more to come, because I'm trying to collect every printed copy that was ever released of this book. Don't ask me why I have a weird obsession with it all of a sudden, I just do. So I was super hyped to see this full-color Splinter of the Mind's Eye art piece. It looks absolutely incredible, and I'm so glad they put this in. So here they summarize Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and they summarize the Vader's Quest comic, where he finds out Luke's name. And then we go straight into Empire, and we've got dialogue, and it just reads like an in-universe narrative describing these events. It reads like a novelization, and it's done really well. Obviously, there aren't any thoughts, and that just makes it seem like it's written in-universe. Like, Luke Skywalker gave his accounts to Vorn Na'al, and he wrote this. Especially the stuff about how history had been wiped. Like, this just seems so in-universe. But we go through Empire, the I am your father bit, no, I am your father. And then we get to Zizur, and Zizur's confrontation with the Empire as depicted in Shadows of the Empire. We also get, incredibly, a summary of the Galaxy magazine story, The Emperor's Trophy, which I've talked about before on my channel. In one of my random obscure EU lore videos, and Only Good Games has talked about it as well. It says, under direct orders from the Emperor, Vader's next step was the remote planet Wayland. The forested globe looked unremarkable from orbit, but Darth Vader knew that Palpatine's private storehouse and trophy room lay deep in the stone heart of Mount Tantus. The shriveled Emperor was waiting impatiently in the mountain's complex throne room. Vader reported to his master and dutifully presented him with a box. As the malevolent wizard expectantly lifted the lid, Vader felt a brief stab of regret, since he had hoped to transfer both items to his retreat on Vajun, but the Emperor had overridden his wishes. Showing all his damaged teeth in a smile of depraved rapture, Palpatine reached inside and removed Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and severed right hand. One more prize for the vaults, or considering Mount Tantus' operational cloning chamber, perhaps something more. So, breaking that down is crazy. So, somehow Stephen J. Sansweet is a master of continuity and works in some new stuff. So the original Emperor's Trophy short story from the Galaxy magazine depicted this scene, but it didn't depict like Vader's wish to go to Vajun here. So this also mentions Vader's fortress, because it mentions that Darth Vader wanted to take the prize back to his own fortress of Luke's hand and his old lightsaber. He wanted to take it back to Vader's fortress, where he had Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber, as we learn in Junior Jedi Knights. That is such a cool connection. We also get Mount Tantus, so we get the Thrawn Trilogy and Dark Empire connection. Like, literally mentions an operational cloning chamber. Beautiful. And it's just a summary of the Emperor's Trophy short story. I was shocked that they summarized a short story from Galaxy magazine in here. Absolutely incredible stuff. Like, who says the EU isn't canon? They're treating this as factual facts that go in and around the movies. So I just don't get how people can say it's not canon. It clearly is. So we get Return of the Jedi, and we get the original Anakin Skywalker. And that concludes the saga of Darth Vader, the summary of his life. And then we get all the Vader merchandise. 20 years of Vader merchandise, it says. And we get all this cool stuff. And then we get this bibliography in the back as well. So that was Anakin Skywalker, the story of Darth Vader. So there you have it. The Star Wars Masterpiece Collection source books. I got way more excited than I thought I was going to doing the video for these. I got super excited to be talking about these. They're so fun. They're so fun. As you heard, such obscure and wacky references. There's so much Galaxy magazines in here. New lore in here. All kinds of good stuff that Expanded Universe fans really love. And so these are no exception. I absolutely adore these. I only got these in a couple weeks ago. I got this one first and read through it and loved it, and just read through both of these yesterday. And they read like books. You can read through these. They're really easy to read. They're very readable. So for people who want to know about the making of the movies, you've got that. For people who want to read the story written from an in-universe perspective of all of these characters, with great, wacky, obscure, deep-cut EU lore references, these are for you. For people who wanted to know that there's multiple kinds of mites in the Star Wars universe, these are for you. I think these are great. Let me know in the comments which of these is your favorite, though. This one has to be my favorite. The Aurra Sing one's so good. Then the 3PO one, then the Vader one. But the Vader one's still amazing. I love all of these. 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 for me. I don't know why I just decided to rank them all of a sudden, but these are amazing source books, and they are largely forgotten. It might have been the high price tag. I mean, $75 for a Star Wars book in 1998, 1999, and 2000. That seems steep to me, but they ended up being cheaper later on, but they also ended up being forgotten, unfortunately. Since they were books that came with an action figure, I think a lot of people would have thought the same thing as me. These just aren't worth it. They're just going to be cheap and thrown together like last minute. These are not. These are so well researched. These are invaluable resources, and I think any Expanded Universe collection would benefit from having them. Let me know in the comments which of these is your favorite, and let me know if you plan on getting these. And yeah, let me know what you thought of these. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This video is definitely the longest, or the second longest in this in this series so far, because we droned on and on about the High Name Minis, me and Noah. But these will be a long video series, to be a long video to be sure, for the three of these, because it was just so fun to talk about them. And I love everything about these. They're so unique. But are the figures worth getting? According to the Amazon reviews, no. So I just have the books. I'd love to have gotten the box that they go in sometime, but don't have them right now. Don't need them. This is what the EU's about. Resource material like this that combines the EU with the movies the way it was intended. And I really love these. Yeah, so let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on these. And I'll see you next time as we continue to talk about obscure Star Wars EU in this video series. I'll see you guys then.